My dear brothers and sisters, one of the biggest reasons people lose peace in their lives is because they forget their own value. They allow others to speak to them without respect. They tolerate behavior that slowly breaks their heart. They keep trying to please people who never truly appreciate them. But the truth is simple and powerful. The way you treat yourself teaches people how to treat you. When self-respect becomes weak, people begin to cross limits. When dignity is ignored, peace slowly disappears. Islam teaches us that honor is not given by people. Honor is given by Allah. And when you understand your worth in the sight of Allah, everything begins to change. You speak differently. You choose differently. You protect your peace differently. Today, let us reflect on powerful lessons that remind us why self-respect is not pride, but a form of wisdom that protects your heart, your dignity, and your relationship with Allah. 1. Allah has already given you dignity. My dear brothers and sisters, one of the most powerful truths a believer can hold in their heart is that Allah has already honored them. Your worth is not created by people, and it is not measured by how others treat you. Your value does not increase when someone praises you, and it does not decrease when someone ignores you. Your dignity was given to you long before people formed opinions about you. It was given to you by Allah, the one who created you with wisdom, purpose, and honor. Many people spend years trying to prove themselves to others. They try to gain acceptance, approval, and recognition from people around them. They feel that if someone appreciates them, then they are valuable, and if someone criticizes them, then they are not good enough. This way of thinking slowly weakens the heart because it makes your self-worth dependent on people whose opinions constantly change. People may praise you today and criticize you tomorrow. They may appreciate you in one moment and ignore you in another. If your sense of value is tied to people, your peace will always feel unstable. A believer understands something deeper and more stable. Your dignity comes from Allah, and what comes from Allah cannot be reduced by people. Allah created you with care, shaped you with wisdom, and placed within you abilities, strengths, and qualities that are unique to you. Every person has been given something special. Every person has a purpose that only they can fulfill. When you forget this truth, you begin to search for worth in places where it was never meant to be found. Sometimes people allow disrespect simply because they begin to doubt their own value. They remain in situations where they are constantly hurt, ignored, or taken for granted. They tolerate words that damage their confidence and actions that disturb their peace. Over time, this slowly teaches the heart to accept less than it deserves. But when you remember that Allah has already honored you, something begins to change inside you. You begin to realize that you do not need to beg for appreciation from anyone. You do not need to reduce yourself just to be accepted. You do not need to remain in places where your dignity is constantly ignored. Understanding your worth in the sight of Allah brings strength to your character. It allows you to walk away from situations that damage your peace without feeling guilty. It allows you to remain calm when others try to reduce your confidence. It allows you to avoid seeking constant validation from people who do not truly understand your value. This does not mean you become arrogant or proud. Islam does not teach arrogance. Islam teaches balance. You remain humble, but you also remain aware of the honor Allah has given you. Self-respect begins when you recognize that your identity is not defined by people's opinions. Your identity is defined by your relationship with Allah. When you strengthen your connection with Allah, you begin to feel secure within yourself. You no longer feel desperate for acceptance because you know that the one who created you knows your worth completely. Even when people misunderstand you, Allah understands you. Even when people overlook your efforts, Allah sees every effort you make. Even when people fail to appreciate you, Allah knows your intentions. This understanding protects your heart from unnecessary pain. It reminds you that you are not living to impress people. You are living to please Allah. And when pleasing Allah becomes your priority, many of the pressures created by people begin to lose their power over you. You stop chasing approval and you start protecting your peace. You stop allowing disrespect and you start valuing your dignity. When you truly understand that Allah has honored you, you begin to carry yourself differently. Your decisions become wiser, your boundaries become clearer, your heart becomes calmer. You no longer feel the need to prove your worth to everyone because you already know where your true value comes from. Self-respect is not created in a single moment. It grows when you remind yourself again and again that Allah created you with purpose. It grows when you refuse to accept what damages your dignity. It grows when you choose environments that respect your values. And it grows when you trust that what Allah has written for you will never require you to lose your honor. Always remember that the one who created you gave you dignity that cannot be taken away by people. When you remember this truth, you begin to live with greater confidence, greater peace, and greater emotional strength. And when you respect the honor Allah gave you, you naturally teach others to respect you as well. 2. People treat you based on what you accept. My dear brothers and sisters, one of the most important realities we must understand in life is that people often treat us according to the limits we set. Human beings naturally observe what is tolerated and what is not. When something is repeatedly allowed, it slowly becomes normal in the minds of others. This is why self-respect is closely connected to the standards we maintain in our interactions and relationships. If a person continuously accepts behavior that hurts them, disrespects them, or ignores their feelings, others may begin to assume that such behavior is acceptable. Sometimes people do not even realize they are crossing boundaries because those boundaries were never clearly protected. When disrespect is ignored repeatedly, it quietly teaches others that there are no consequences for hurtful words or careless actions. Over time, what began as a small discomfort can turn into a pattern that becomes difficult to change. This is why Islam teaches balance in character. A believer is kind, patient, and forgiving, but at the same time, a believer does not allow continuous harm to damage their dignity. Accepting everything in the name of kindness is not always wisdom. There is a difference between patience and allowing yourself to be constantly hurt. There is a difference between forgiveness and ignoring repeated disrespect. Islam encourages compassion, but it also encourages self-respect. Protecting your dignity does not make you arrogant. It makes you responsible for the heart and honor Allah has entrusted to you. When you constantly say yes to things that disturb your peace, people may assume your comfort does not matter. When you remain silent in situations where your dignity is reduced, others may assume their behavior is acceptable. When you continue giving your time and energy to those who do not value it, they may not recognize its importance. Gradually, this pattern can create emotional exhaustion because the heart begins to feel unseen and unappreciated. Setting healthy limits is not about being harsh or unkind. It is about understanding your worth and protecting your emotional well-being. Sometimes people fear setting boundaries because they worry about disappointing others or losing relationships. They feel that saying no might make them seem difficult or unfriendly. But a wise person understands that a relationship built on the absence of respect will always bring pain. A connection that requires you to constantly sacrifice your dignity is not a connection that brings peace. When you respect yourself, you begin to communicate clearly through your actions that your time, feelings, and peace are valuable. You begin to distance yourself from conversations that bring negativity. You begin to avoid environments that constantly make you feel uncomfortable. You begin to choose carefully who has access to your personal life. This does not mean you become distant from everyone. It means you become selective in a healthy and balanced way. People often become more mindful in their behavior when they see that you do not accept disrespect easily. They become more careful with their words when they realize that you value meaningful communication. They become more respectful when they understand that your kindness is not a weakness. When people recognize that you honor your dignity, they begin to honor it as well. It is important to remember that boundaries are not walls that isolate you from the world. Boundaries are guidelines that protect your peace. They help you maintain balance in relationships. They allow you to give kindness without feeling used. They allow you to show generosity without feeling drained. They allow you to care for others without neglecting yourself. Sometimes setting boundaries requires courage because it may feel uncomfortable at first. You may feel unfamiliar saying no. You may feel uneasy stepping back from certain situations. But discomfort in the beginning often leads to peace in the long run. Protecting your dignity may reduce temporary approval from people, but it increases long-term respect. Islam teaches us that moderation is important in all aspects of life. We are encouraged to treat people with compassion, but we are also encouraged to avoid oppression, even if that oppression is directed toward ourselves. Allowing constant emotional harm is not a sign of strength. True strength is knowing when to remain patient and when to protect your peace. When you begin to accept only what aligns with your values, your life slowly becomes calmer. Your relationships become healthier. Your interactions become more meaningful. People learn that your kindness comes with dignity. They learn that your patience has limits. They learn that your presence should be valued, not taken for granted. Always remember that people observe what you accept more than what you say. Your actions communicate your standards. When you choose self-respect, you silently teach others how to treat you. When you choose dignity, you show others that your peace is important. When you choose balance, you create space for healthier relationships to grow. Accept what brings goodness into your life and gently distance yourself from what harms your heart. By doing this, you protect the honor Allah has given you and create an environment where respect can naturally grow. 3. Self-respect protects you from unnecessary pain. My dear brothers and sisters, one of the greatest blessings a person can have in life is inner peace. Yet many people lose this peace not because of major problems, but because they repeatedly allow situations that slowly hurt their hearts. Sometimes the pain we experience is not only caused by what others do, but also by what we continue to tolerate. When self-respect becomes weak, a person may begin to accept treatment that quietly damages their emotional well-being. They may remain in environments where they are not appreciated, continue conversations that drain their energy, and give chances to people who repeatedly show the same harmful behavior. Self-respect acts like a shield that protects your heart from unnecessary pain. It reminds you that your emotional well-being is important and that your heart deserves care. Many people think that being patient means allowing everything, but patience in Islam does not mean allowing yourself to be constantly hurt. Patience is strength during difficulty, but it does not mean ignoring continuous disrespect or emotional harm. There is a difference between enduring hardship with faith and repeatedly placing yourself in situations that slowly break your peace. When a person does not respect themselves, they may keep returning to places that cause pain, hoping that things will change. They may believe that giving more time, more effort, or more understanding will suddenly create a different outcome. But when patterns repeat again and again, wisdom teaches us to reflect. Sometimes the lesson is not to keep enduring the same pain, but to protect the dignity Allah has given us. Self-respect allows you to recognize when something is harming your peace and gives you the courage to step back. Many people carry silent emotional wounds because they feel responsible for maintaining every relationship, even when that relationship damages their well-being. They may fear losing people, fear being misunderstood, or fear being alone. Because of these fears, they continue accepting behavior that deeply affects their confidence and happiness. Over time, this constant pressure exhausts the heart. A tired heart struggles to feel joy, struggles to feel motivation, and struggles to feel emotionally balanced. Self-respect teaches you that not every door needs to remain open. Not every conversation needs to continue. Not every relationship needs unlimited access to your time and energy. Protecting your peace is not selfish, it is responsible. Your heart is an amana, a trust from Allah. Just as you protect your physical health from harm, you must also protect your emotional health from continuous damage. When self-respect becomes part of your character, you begin to recognize early signs of situations that may disturb your peace. You become more aware of how certain environments affect your emotions. You become more careful about who you share your personal life with. You become more mindful of how much energy you invest in people who do not appreciate it. This awareness helps you avoid unnecessary pain before it becomes deeply rooted in your heart. Sometimes stepping back is necessary for healing. Distance does not always mean anger, and it does not always mean you do not care. Sometimes distance is wisdom. Sometimes distance allows clarity. Sometimes distance protects you from repeating the same emotional hurt again and again. Islam encourages reflection, balance, and protecting oneself from harm. It teaches us that harming ourselves emotionally for the sake of pleasing people is not a requirement of faith. Self-respect also helps you understand that not every loss is truly a loss. Sometimes losing access to certain people or situations protects you from deeper pain in the future. What feels difficult in the moment may actually be a form of protection from Allah. When you choose dignity over attachment to unhealthy situations, you create space for better opportunities, healthier relationships, and greater emotional stability. A person with self-respect does not constantly chase those who do not value them. They do not repeatedly explain themselves to those who do not listen. They do not continue giving effort where there is no appreciation. Instead, they place their trust in Allah and focus on what brings peace to their heart. They understand that what is meant for them will never require them to lose their dignity. Protecting yourself from unnecessary pain allows your heart to grow stronger. It allows you to focus on your personal growth, your relationship with Allah, and the positive aspects of your life. When your heart is not constantly occupied with emotional hurt, you are able to think clearly, act wisely, and make better decisions. Emotional stability creates strength, and strength allows you to move forward in life with confidence. Self-respect does not mean you stop caring about people. It means you care about yourself enough to avoid situations that repeatedly harm you. It means you recognize your limits and respect your emotional needs. It means you choose peace when something consistently disturbs your heart. It means you trust that Allah sees your intentions and understands the struggles you face. When you protect your heart, you protect your ability to feel hope, patience, and gratitude. When you protect your peace, you create space for emotional healing. When you respect yourself, you reduce the chances of experiencing the same unnecessary pain again and again. Always remember that your emotional well-being matters. Your peace matters. Your dignity matters. Choosing self-respect does not push away what is meant for you. Instead, it protects you from what is not meant for you. And through this protection, Allah opens doors that bring greater calm, greater clarity, and greater strength into your life. 4. When you respect yourself, you do not seek validation from people. My dear brothers and sisters, one of the greatest sources of emotional exhaustion in today's world is the constant need for validation from people. Many individuals live their lives feeling dependent on the approval of others. They feel happy when they are praised and feel broken when they are criticized. Their confidence rises and falls based on how people respond to them. When validation becomes the source of self-worth, the heart becomes unstable because people's opinions are never constant. People change their views quickly, and what pleases them today may not please them tomorrow. When a person lacks self-respect, they often feel the need to constantly prove themselves. They feel pressure to explain every decision, justify every action, and seek approval for every step they take. They begin to shape their personality around what will be accepted by others. They may hide their true feelings just to avoid disapproval. They may pretend to be comfortable with things that disturb them simply to avoid being judged. Over time, this creates a quiet internal struggle because the person is no longer living honestly. They are living according to expectations rather than values. Self-respect frees a person from this exhausting cycle. When you truly respect yourself, you begin to understand that not everyone needs to understand you. Not everyone needs to agree with you. Not everyone needs to approve of your choices. People see life from different perspectives, and it is impossible to satisfy every opinion. Trying to gain approval from everyone often leads to losing your own sense of direction. A believer understands that the most important approval is the approval of Allah. When your focus becomes pleasing Allah, many of the pressures created by people begin to lose their weight. You begin to ask yourself a different question. Instead of asking whether people are satisfied with you, you begin asking whether Allah is pleased with your intentions. This shift brings deep peace because the pleasure of Allah is stable and meaningful, while the approval of people is temporary and uncertain. Seeking constant validation often causes a person to over-explain themselves. They feel the need to justify their silence, justify their decisions, and justify their boundaries. But not every decision requires explanation. Not every action requires approval. Sometimes silence is enough. Sometimes your choice does not need to be understood by everyone. When you respect yourself, you allow your actions to reflect your values without feeling the need to convince everyone. Many people feel uncomfortable when they are not accepted by certain individuals or groups. They may feel rejected or misunderstood. But self-respect reminds you that rejection from people is not always a loss. Sometimes rejection is protection. Sometimes not being accepted in certain environments protects your character, your peace, and your faith. Not every place is meant for you, and not every person is meant to walk your journey with you. When a person depends too much on validation, they may slowly lose their authenticity. They may begin to change themselves to fit expectations. They may speak differently, behave differently, or even hide their true values just to avoid disapproval. This creates internal conflict because the heart feels disconnected from sincerity. Islam encourages sincerity in character. Being sincere means remaining true to what is right, even when it is not popular. Self-respect allows you to accept that people will always have opinions. Some will appreciate you, and some will misunderstand you. Some will support you, and some will criticize you. This is part of life. Even the prophets of Allah faced criticism despite having the highest character. Their value was never reduced by the opinions of people because their focus remained on fulfilling their purpose. When you respect yourself, you no longer feel the need to chase acceptance. You begin to feel comfortable with who you are. You stop trying to prove your worth through constant explanation. You become more peaceful in your decisions because you trust that Allah knows your intentions. When your intentions are sincere, you do not need constant reassurance from people. This does not mean you ignore advice or refuse correction. Islam encourages learning, growth, and humility. Listening to beneficial advice is a sign of wisdom, but there is a difference between learning from guidance and constantly depending on approval. Healthy advice helps you grow, but constant validation creates dependency. Self-respect helps you maintain balance between humility and confidence. When you free yourself from the need for validation, your heart becomes lighter. You no longer feel controlled by people's reactions. You no longer feel anxious about every opinion. You no longer feel pressured to explain every choice. This freedom allows you to focus on meaningful goals, personal growth, and spiritual development. It allows you to invest your energy in what truly matters. Seeking validation can also lead a person to remain in unhealthy relationships simply because they fear losing acceptance. They may continue giving attention to those who do not value them, hoping that eventually they will feel appreciated. But appreciation that must be forced rarely brings peace. Respect that must be requested repeatedly rarely feels sincere. When you respect yourself, you naturally distance yourself from situations where your value is not recognized. Self-respect builds quiet confidence. This confidence does not need to be loud. It does not need to prove itself constantly. It simply exists as inner stability. A confident person does not feel the need to compete for attention or approval. They understand that their value is not dependent on comparison or recognition. When your connection with Allah becomes stronger, the need for validation begins to fade. You begin to find comfort in knowing that Allah sees what people do not see. Allah knows what is hidden in your heart. Allah understands your intentions, even when others misunderstand your actions. This awareness creates emotional strength because your sense of worth becomes connected to something far greater than opinions. Self-respect reminds you that your life does not need to be shaped by the expectations of people. Your life should be shaped by sincerity, purpose, and faith. You are not required to prove your value to everyone. Your responsibility is to live with honesty, dignity, and trust in Allah's wisdom. When you stop seeking validation from people, you begin to experience peace that does not depend on approval. You begin to live with greater emotional balance. You begin to make decisions based on what is right rather than what is popular. This stability allows you to grow with confidence and move forward without constant doubt. Always remember that people's approval is temporary, but Allah's pleasure brings lasting peace. When you respect yourself, you no longer feel controlled by opinions. You live with sincerity, and sincerity brings calmness to the heart. And when the heart becomes calm, life becomes easier to navigate with patience, clarity, and trust in Allah. 5. When you feel weak, Allah is teaching you to rely on Him. My dear brothers and sisters, there are moments in life when a person feels emotionally tired, they feel weak, overwhelmed, uncertain, and sometimes even lost. There are moments when the heart feels heavy without a clear reason, moments when you try to stay strong, but the strength you once felt seems distant. These are the moments when a person begins to question themselves. They wonder why they feel this way and why things seem more difficult than expected. But the believer understands something very important. Feeling weak does not always mean you are failing. Sometimes feeling weak is part of learning how to rely on Allah more deeply. Sometimes the moments that make you feel emotionally vulnerable are the same moments that bring you closer to your Creator. Human beings are not created to be completely independent. We are created to recognize our need for Allah. When life is comfortable and everything goes according to our plans, it is easy to feel in control. It is easy to believe that our success is only the result of our own effort. But when situations become difficult, when outcomes become uncertain, and when the heart feels fragile, we begin to realize how limited our control truly is. In these moments, Allah teaches us one of the most powerful lessons of faith: reliance on Him. Reliance on Allah does not mean you stop making effort. It means you understand that your effort alone is not enough without His support. It means you recognize that the outcome of every situation is in His hands. This understanding creates humility in the heart, and humility brings peace because it removes the pressure of believing that everything depends entirely on you. Sometimes a person feels weak because they try to carry everything alone. They try to control every situation, please every person, and solve every problem by themselves. Over time, this creates emotional exhaustion because the human heart was never meant to carry the weight of the entire world alone. When Allah allows you to feel weak, it may be a gentle reminder that you are not meant to depend only on your own strength. You are meant to depend on Him. Turning to Allah in moments of weakness brings comfort that cannot be found elsewhere. When you raise your hands in dua, you acknowledge that there is a higher wisdom guiding your life. You acknowledge that even when things do not make sense to you, Allah's knowledge is complete. You acknowledge that even when you feel uncertain, Allah is never uncertain. This awareness brings calmness because it reminds the heart that it is not alone. Sometimes weakness removes arrogance from the heart. It reminds us that we are human, and being human means experiencing difficulty. Even the strongest people have moments of vulnerability. Even those who appear confident experience periods of doubt. These moments do not reduce your value. Instead, they increase your awareness of how much you need Allah's guidance. When you rely on Allah, your definition of strength begins to change. Strength is no longer about controlling everything. Strength becomes trusting Allah even when the path is unclear. Strength becomes continuing to move forward even when you feel unsure. Strength becomes believing that Allah's plan contains wisdom even when you do not immediately understand it. There are times when a person's plans do not work out the way they expected. Doors they hoped would open remain closed. Situations they wanted to succeed seem to fail. Relationships they valued may come to an end. In these moments, the heart feels disappointed. But the believer understands that what Allah chooses always contains wisdom, even if that wisdom is not immediately visible. Sometimes what feels like a delay is actually preparation. Sometimes what feels like a loss is actually protection. Sometimes what feels like weakness is actually a moment that strengthens your connection with Allah. When you rely on Allah, you begin to trust that every experience, whether easy or difficult, carries a lesson that helps you grow. Reliance on Allah does not remove challenges from life, but it changes how you experience those challenges. Instead of feeling completely alone, you feel supported by faith. Instead of feeling completely lost, you feel guided by trust. Instead of feeling completely powerless, you feel comfort in knowing that Allah has control over what you cannot control. When a person strengthens their reliance on Allah, they begin to feel emotionally stronger even if their circumstances remain difficult. This strength comes from certainty that Allah sees every struggle, every tear, and every effort. Nothing is hidden from Him. No hardship is ignored by Him. Every moment of patience is known by Him. Sometimes weakness softens the heart in a way that comfort never could. It reminds us to be humble, to be grateful, and to be sincere. It reminds us that our success is not only the result of our abilities, but also the result of Allah's mercy. This awareness protects us from arrogance and helps us remain balanced in both ease and difficulty. When you rely on Allah, you begin to understand that your value is not reduced by temporary hardship. Feeling weak does not mean you are incapable. It means you are human. And being human means experiencing moments that remind you of your need for Allah's support. Reliance on Allah also brings patience. Patience is not simply waiting without purpose. Patience is trusting that Allah's timing is perfect. Sometimes what we want immediately is not what is best for us. Sometimes the delay allows growth, reflection, and preparation for something better. When you trust Allah's timing, you begin to feel less anxious about outcomes and more focused on maintaining sincerity in your effort. Your weakness does not distance you from Allah. It brings you closer to Him. When you feel weak, you become more sincere in your dua. You become more aware of your need for guidance. You become more humble in your expectations. This humility creates a deeper connection with Allah, and that connection brings comfort that no worldly reassurance can replace. Always remember that Allah does not test a person without wisdom. Every challenge contains an opportunity for growth. Every moment of difficulty carries the potential to strengthen your faith. Every feeling of weakness can become a doorway to greater reliance on Allah. When you rely on Allah, your heart learns to remain steady even in uncertain situations. You understand that people may come and go, circumstances may change, and plans may not always unfold as expected. But Allah remains constant, His knowledge remains perfect, His mercy remains present. Even when you feel weak, you are never truly alone. Allah is aware of every detail of your life. He knows what you are capable of handling. He knows what will strengthen your character. He knows what will guide you toward growth. And He knows what will ultimately bring goodness into your life. So, when you feel weak, do not lose hope. Do not assume that weakness means failure. Instead, see it as a reminder to turn back to Allah with sincerity. See it as an opportunity to strengthen your trust in His plan. See it as a moment that teaches you that true strength comes from reliance on Him. Because when a heart learns to rely on Allah, it discovers a type of strength that does not break easily. A strength built on faith remains steady even when circumstances change. A strength connected to Allah continues even when worldly support feels uncertain. May Allah strengthen our hearts, increase our trust in Him, and grant us the ability to rely on Him in every situation. May He replace our moments of weakness with deeper faith, greater patience, and lasting peace. Ameen. My dear brothers and sisters, always remember that self-respect is not about proving that you are better than others. It is about remembering the honor that Allah has already placed within you. When you respect yourself, you protect the dignity that Allah has given you. When you protect your dignity, you protect your peace. And when your peace is protected, your heart becomes stronger in faith. Do not lower your value just to gain someone's approval. Do not silence your dignity just to keep people comfortable. The right people will respect you when you respect yourself. And what Allah has written for you will never require you to lose your worth. Your value does not come from people's opinions. Your value comes from the one who created you. When you trust Allah, rely on Him, and honor yourself in the right way, you begin to live with calmness, clarity, and strength that no one can take away. Respect yourself enough to walk away from what harms your peace. Respect yourself enough to choose what strengthens your faith. Respect yourself enough to believe that Allah's plan will always bring what is best for you. May Allah fill our hearts with dignity, strengthen our self-respect, protect us from what harms us, and guide us toward what brings peace in this life and success in the hereafter. Amen.